Hello everyone, my name is Ismahan and I wanted to make this video to talk about how I found out about MBTI and what I've learned since. So I found out about MBTI 4 years ago. I was discussing productivity with someone I know and I was wondering why I wasn't as productive as many people that I know. And he suggested I take an MBTI assessment. And he explained that it was not a personality test, but rather an assessment that allowed us to understand how we learn new information. And that's something I've always been interested in. So I took the test and the result was INTP. I read the description of INTP and I thought it was really accurate. Even the career path suggested, mainly data scientist and analyst, is something that I'm interested in. So I was really surprised and researched INTP females on YouTube. I found 2 that I really related to when I watched their videos. And then fast forward to a few months ago, many months ago, I stumbled across a video of Dave's Superpowers that was saying that a lot of people mistype themselves, and people who believe they're INTPs can be SFJs, for example. At that time, I hadn't dove deep into the cognitive functions, so him saying INTPs or SFJs might think of themselves as INTPs, it seemed really foreign, like the 2 types looked like they had nothing in common. So I decided to learn more about the cognitive functions and see whether or not I was actually an INTP or not. I realized that most of the online tests were not necessarily accurate because some of the questions related on behavior or tendency, how do you to spot extroversion as opposed to introversion, they relied on the dichotomies too, and since it's self-reported, some people might see themselves differently than they are in real life. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna research this a bit further. And there's a type that I thought was very similar and I also related to, it was the INFP. And for people who might not be familiar with the cognitive functions, INTPs and INFPs might seem really different, except they're not very different. I think people might think they're different because of the stereotypes of feelers being overly emotional, especially the INFPs. Whenever you watch videos about 16 personalities, the comedy skits, the INFP seems overly emotional, and you think, at least I think, I do not relate to that. But upon reading the descriptions, I thought, okay, this might also be, this might be my actual type. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna research this a bit deeper. So I dove into the cognitive functions. INFPs and INTPs have the same perception axis. They both have NE as their auxiliary and SI as their tertiary function. What that means is that they might look alike on the external, on the exterior. For other people, they might look alike. They both might look cold to people who don't know them and bubbly to people who are actually close to them, friends or family. So why do I think I'm on the NE-SI axis? I took some notes so I would remember. The reason why I think I'm NE is because, first of all, I would like to say that I'm pretty sure I'm an introverted judger because of many situations in the past that allowed me to realize that I don't see the world as like most people I know do. And that led to many conflicts. And I stand my ground and usually don't understand why people think a certain way because it doesn't make sense to me, and I wasn't always able to articulate it in a good way. So MBTI allowed me to the MBTI theory explains, or at least attempts to explain, why that could be. So knowing that I am introverted judger, that means that my auxiliary function dominant introverted judger. That means that my auxiliary function is extroverted. And I don't have SC to save my life. I don't think I have it in my function stack, or if I have it, it's very low and underdeveloped. The reason why I'm saying this is because I've always been in my own bubble, very creative, but totally oblivious to what was going on around me. So, for example, I can pass people in the street that I know without even seeing them. That has caused me a lot of conflict. I also have a hard time, I'm not saying this in particular is SC, but I don't remember the faces well and the names. And so when I pass these people, because I don't even see them, and they confront me, I'm like, sometimes I don't even know who is talking to me. So anyway, so I don't think I have SC in my functional stack. And if I have it, it's very low. Let's go back to any. I think any is my auxiliary function because, again, of the creativity always in my bubble, but also I think I'm capable of seeing, oh, that's a fact, seeing a problem from many perspectives. And I have come to realize that not everyone can do that. That doesn't mean I don't have one option is more probable than others. Sometimes, yes, one option stands out, but I can still entertain the thought that something might be due to many different things as opposed to one. As for the SI, I know that we can be having a conversation with my friends, and they can use an expression that I've heard used in a comical way, or in a, how can I say this, in another context that was funny or something, so I can bring it up in the conversation even though it is irrelevant to what we're talking about now. So I think this is what any SI means. I ramble a lot, and I can sometimes appear like I'm saying things that don't relate to the current conversation, but they do for me, because something that is happening right now reminded me of something that happened before that I'm associating with what is going on right now. So I think this is the NE-SI combo. Why I think NE is higher, again, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm an introverted judger, so my perception function, my auxiliary function, has to be extroverted. And also SI is a function that I'm still developing, because most of the time I'm unaware of how I'm feeling in my body, like tired or tensions, if I have any tensions. This is something I have started to develop thanks to meditation. So I'm starting to develop SI, but I wouldn't say it's more developed than any. So I think any SI as the auxiliary and tertiary function is the right pick for me, the right order, in the right order for me. Now moving on to TI and FI. Why did I go back and forth? So I was watching a video of Calypso from Casual Cognition. She was talking about TI and TE learning styles, and she explained that TI has this need to learn as much as possible on a subject before starting to act on it. Whereas TE could be satisfied with learning the necessary to use it for the task at hand. Her being INFP, she uses TE as that's what she explained in her video, that she uses TE to achieve tasks. And I definitely know that I have a preference for TI. Meaning before I start a project, I code. So what I would do is think of all the possible obstacles, the things that I should look for, that I should test, and I write or draw a diagram of the whole code before even starting. And actually that's also that explains my lack of productivity, because I always think things through before I do anything, and it takes me a while to make decisions because I have to factor in so many factors. And I up until recently, I hadn't realized that this was actually a tiresome process, and that could explain my lack of productivity, because I was already tired before starting the project. Whereas some of my TE friends didn't have this issue, since they would always start with a skeleton, a very basic skeleton of the project, and then add features to it, which is something I struggle with doing. I would much rather think things through and then start coding the parts that I'm going to use often, and I'll code them into functions and test them and something like that. So even with this, again, this is something I heard from Calypso. I don't know if it's established, so I thought, okay, this might be a tendency, maybe not really due to TI or something like that. So I wasn't reassured. And also, I thought maybe this is because I studied computer science in college, and we had to justify everything we did, and maybe the anxiety of having to justify myself led me to research everything compulsively, to have some sort of control over the situation whenever I would be asked something. I also think maybe that played a part. I think I'm logical, but again, I studied computer science. I will say though that my first course or workshop of mathematical logic was one of the best moments there. I really didn't like computer science studying it. It was too academical for me. Too much useless information, or information that I didn't see as valuable. I didn't know what it was meant for. It was also too academic, not enough practice. And so I was feeling like I had balls thrown at me that I had to juggle, but I didn't know to what purpose, why I needed all of these balls. Maybe I just needed 2 or 3, you know? For example, we had mechanics. We studied mechanics. We studied a lot of things that I didn't see a need for, and I did not really understand. Okay, so I am logical, but that's not enough to say that I'm a TI user, because a lot of INFPs are also logical and can value logic too and be very good at it. So I'm usually not aware of how I feel. It takes me months or years sometimes to figure out how I was feeling at a given time of my life. So I thought, okay, that might be more of a TI thing. According to this stereotype that I would fit, INTPs are more likely to give advice as opposed to just listen to a person talking about their issue. That's totally true for me. And I had this issue with a friend of mine that I believe is an FI user, NFP or SFP, I don't know. I can't type people, but I'm pretty sure she was an FP. She was very good at, I don't know, just being supportive. But to me, that's more frustrating. I remember one time she had an issue with a person, and I was willing to solve her problem, and I wanted to basically arrange things so that she wouldn't work with this person that was mean to her. And she said my interfering was actually bad because she didn't want me to interfere. She didn't want me to solve her problem. And that was really weird for me, because I think the reason why we do this is because problems or make us feel something uncomfortable, and we want to make this feeling go away and as soon as possible, and that's why we want to solve the problem. And I think her, in contrast, has no problem being in uncomfortable situations, and so she was probably just venting or looking for emotional support, but I didn't understand it because to me it did not make sense. But I did remember it, and since that moment I became more careful. I would not give my opinion if not asked, and I would not try to solve her issues. So I said I'm not really in tune with how I feel. In fact, this friend of mine would regularly tell me how I was feeling, and I would be like, no, I don't think so. But months or years later, I would realize that she was right. So, but again, I came across, I don't know where I saw this information, that FI users might repress their gut feeling. So I thought, okay, maybe this is also me, and that would not indicate TI, but rather not indicate anything at all, especially since, again, I value logic and objective decision making. Maybe I repress this part of my skills. Again, what would suggest TI is the inconsistencies that I'm very good at spotting in people. FI users are also very good at reading people, but I think if someone contradicts themselves months apart or years apart, I'll know it. I remember what they say, and if they say something that doesn't make sense with what they've previously stated, I will realize it instantly. And I have a talent of bullshit detecting, and I steer away from people who lie or seek attention because I see them as potential problems that I would very much like to avoid. And I think I have this attitude. I've always had this attitude in my life. I remember one day telling my teacher, she was asking about, I don't remember exactly what she was asking about, that was like 15 years ago. We were talking about mistakes, and I told her, just seeing the mistakes that other people make allows me not to make the same mistakes. Because this is how I approach life. I try as much as I can not to make mistakes, even though I know that that's not realistic, but I'd rather think everything through as opposed to just trust a gut feeling or something like that. And I realized in hindsight that it might not be the same thing, because after trying to figure out what was the right decision to make for a lifetime, I realized that listening to your gut feeling might actually be the best indicator as opposed to weighing in the pros and cons. So my philosophy doesn't really pay off always. Also, one last thing I'd like to add is difference between INTPs and INFPs is that they're on the, of course, TI FE axis for the INTPs and FI TE axis for the INFPs. So one is a FE user and one is an FI user. When you have low FE, it's really complicated to figure out whether you have just low FE or high FI, because you're individualistic. Are you individualistic because of TI or FI? So a video of Pukoki helped me sort it out. She's an INFJ. She was discussing the differences between INFJs and INFPs. INFJs are FE users, INFPs are high dominant FI users. What she was saying is that FI users are more tolerant with other people who don't share the same values as them, as opposed to FE, who think their values are universal, and therefore might be more judgmental, let's say, or less tolerant, with other people who don't share the same values. Definitely think I fit into the FE category. Again, my values are so basic. It's loyalty, honesty, fairness. So if someone doesn't have these values, I will question them, and I don't want them in my life because they're potential problems that I don't want to deal with. I'd rather not waste my energy in people like that. Anyway, so I hope this was helpful to anyone who might be going through the same questioning or might be drowning in the sea of information about MBTI, especially since in this community everyone contradicts each other, the other person, and everyone has their own vision of the cognitive functions and interpretations, and which, by the way, is a critique I make to the MBTI, because if a theory really holds water, it shouldn't be that hard to understand. Many people have been MBTI enthusiasts for years, and what I see in a lot of forums is that they don't type celebrities the right way. I understand that typing celebrities is hard because you don't know them personally, but still, even they are radically different or attribute the same thing to different functions, depending on who is posting, who is reacting, given their opinion. So I think that's a testament to either people really not understanding MBTI, or MBTI just needing more refining, which I think the latter is the best explanation. It still needs more refining. I hope this was helpful. I think I'm an INTP, and if host Eric pulls me over from talking with famous people, it would be an honor to have his input on this. Try as you might, you just can't type, 'cause you're mistype, and I've been waiting to pull you over all night. Bye.